Hey everybody, this is Pat from Rain Country. God is good all the time. And today I'm working on a little project for my Rite pump. I got in a meter for the pump, so that I got this used on, well, it says it was used. It doesn't look like it was used. It only has 62.5 hours on it, so it's might even have had just that run through the factory just to test the pump. I don't know. So right away I seen that there could be a potential problem, and the way I want to mount this is going to be very close to where the handle goes back into the little hanger where the dispenser handle goes, and so it might bump up against this and scar it up. And there are reasons why I want to install it that way. This has like a plastic face on it, and there's two screws that are holding the plastic face on, and I can see where this can get sun damaged or scratched or sun checked over time. So what I want to do is I want to put a little piece of plexiglass over top of this, you know, and polish it, make sure that I can read the dials here. It's got nice big number dials here for filling, and this has a 0 indicator here. You can turn this back to 0 every time you fill. So if you do a little job or you fill up your truck, you can keep a tally on how much fuel you have left before you have to fill up your slip tank again. And down here at the bottom it has total gallons, so that's over the lifetime of the meter is how much usage is right in here. I think it's pretty handy. It's a little bit bulky. You can get the electronic ones that are just a fraction of the size of this one, but I like the mechanical features of this, so you don't have to worry about changing out batteries and fuss around with that. But the size of this is a little bit large, and again, because this is bulky and large, there's a reason why this is going to be fairly close to the pump handle, and so I want to put another little face on this, or a face on top of this one, so I can change out every so often. I know you can get new faces for these, but you know, I got a whole sheet of plexiglass here that I have, and so instead of buying a new face every time one gets scratched up, I could just change out a small piece of plexiglass. So that's what I'm up to today. I have to take dimensions on the face here, and this is going to be 3 7/8 by 4.5. So 3 7/8 by 4.5. Now plexiglass, you can cut this on a table saw. As little as this piece here is, I'm just going to go ahead and use a jigsaw on this. Now one of the things I might add, and I kind of forgot about, is you want to have plexiglass nice and flat against the surface so it doesn't chatter on you, because it'll split on you. So this last piece here I broke because I didn't follow the rules that I'm telling you now. Anyway, you want your plexiglass to be flat against the surface, and you want to try not to get it too hot or too flexed, or it'll expand and it'll actually want to split like it did here. That way it's really close to a solid surface. Now it's always a good idea to always leave the protective film on while you're doing your cuts and all your work, in order to not scratch the surface. I may have a corner here that's got some scratches on it. That's just because this protective film had lifted up over the years. I've had this for a while, so I'm just going to go ahead and clean up the edges here, round them off here to take the sharpness off of it. And no matter how careful you are with a saw, it's never going to be perfect. So just the sandpaper along the edge will make that nice and straight. Okay, that feels pretty good. I'll put the rest of this sheet away to keep it from getting scratched. And this is what we're left with. Now I need to remove the back of this meter. So I'm going to lay this on a non-marring surface. This is just a piece of rubber. It's a rubber mat. That's a 1/2 inch. And just so I remember which side goes where, I'm going to put a little mark here to indicate which way this is orientated, because you can change the direction of the meter to suit your installation needs. This is the inlet side of the meter, and you can also switch this flange around here. This is a screen in here, but this is also a flange that connects to the inlet side of the meter. You can also change this around so you can change the direction of the meter. So there's a little bit of flexibility in what you can do on your installation on these, which is pretty handy. And I am glad I took this apart, because this gasket here appears to be pinched and not installed correctly. So if I was to hook this up, I would get fuel everywhere. So I need to either set this in the sun, let it warm up again, and hopefully get the gasket back into the shape it's supposed to be. And there's a nutating disc in here that actually is the register for the meter. And there's a little tab here. I don't know if you can see that. Goes in there one way. And our little flat washer fell out of there. So I got to make sure that I put that back together properly. Now we have 2 Phillips screws that come out. Now what I'll do is I'm going to take this as a template and put it over top of my plexiglass so I can mark out where the screw holes need to go. Now that I know where my screw holes need to go, I can go ahead and get these drilled out to a diameter just a little bit larger than that. Now there's a couple of ways I can determine what size drill bit that I need. I can use these calipers here. I'll go to 0. We're in millimeters. I want to go to fractions. I need a 7/64. I can also, got a little drill guide here. And being that I know it's 7/64, I can go to a 7/64 hole. And by golly, look at that, it fits. If I didn't have a set of calipers, these are pretty handy. They're not too expensive to keep on hand. But a couple different ways of doing that. So I'm going to go find a drill index. Now the best way I've found to drill plexiglass is these little step bits. Now I have a bit here that'll work. It's just a little bit different than the size that we determined that we need, but it'll work just fine. So we'll go over to the drill press and get this set up to drill. Now what I'm doing here is I'm just going up to the next step, and I'm just kind of beveling the corners to kind of round that off a little bit. That's always a good idea to do when you're working with plastics, is always to round off the corners. It gives it less of a place to start splitting, and it also makes a nicer finish. So it looks to me like this is ready to go. We'll go ahead and pre-fit it before I remove the plastic coating. Okay, go ahead and pre-fit this to make sure that everything lines up. And if my screws are too short, I'll have to find some new screws to take place of the old ones, or the old new ones. Okay, that's going to line up just fine. Now I can remove the plastic. They really didn't need to take that back off now that I'm looking at this. But I noticed there was some flexibility in the dial indicator here, so that's why I thought I needed to take off the back plate and maybe push up from underneath, but I don't need to do that. That makes a lot nicer face than what was on there. I like this a lot better. It makes this a little bit more solid, a little bit more rigid. We'll go ahead and get the back on here. Well, by the schematics, it looks like there were 2 of these little washers, but I'm only finding 1. And by the looks of the gaskets being out of place and whatnot, I think that somebody's had this apart and maybe lost this other washer. It'd probably run just fine without it, but I'll see if I can find another one to put in its place. Okay, that seems to be a pretty... It's magnetic, but it's not real magnetic. I think it's a cheap grade of stainless steel. So I'll see if I can find some light washer in here. Something similar I can use. Okay, we're fixing to reinstall everything on the back. Well, I hope that helps somebody out. Hopefully it'll save me a little bit of money from having to replace this from time to time. I can just go ahead and replace just the very front cover of this, and the rest of it should, underneath should be protected. So, well, thanks for stopping by. Take care, and God bless.